time when you?
Yeah, I think it'll be running again anyway some other time. So actually, we'll start standing up, ladies and gentlemen. And I've just written down, you've probably already seen this once before, but it's always good, they say, to remind of these important learning strategies because it's been a while since we did a lesson. So the first one's obvious. We've got comfort. The dichotomy is comfort and pain. In the middle, discomfort. You want to be obviously as far on the left of all these extremes. You've got speed. You go slow instead of fast to pay attention to more of yourself. Range, you want to go small in the movements rather than big to the end range. And rest, so you want to be your own self-regulator. So know when you want to stop and just stop. Even if I'm still talking, just have a rest. And goals, everyone holds their goals very strongly. They want, do 10 reps or whatnot. So if you can hold your goals as loosely as possible. So today's lesson will be about kind of like about the ribs and having free ribs and turning and turning and using your back instead of your neck muscles to turn. And so if we just like to do the reference movement today, we could try just your arm reaching up, or just noticing how easy it is to move your right arm up or your left arm up, and just try both arms, and just noticing how easy it is to go to that threshold. We can come back to that a bit later. And the other one will be just kind of turning. So turning your head, so you can put your arms down now and just noticing where you turn to, so not pushing anywhere too hard, but just noticing where you go and where on the wall, and just noticing where that point is so you can come back to it, and noticing when you do turn, how much of your turns, what turns, and yeah, so if you'd now like to come down onto the floor and get comfortable.
How to move this?
You can move that down. And just lying down and sinking in and getting your head support all right. So we've all had busy days at work, end of term, and we just want to clock off and switch off, get out of our fight and flight mode and get into this rest, digest mode. It's called the parasympathetic mode. It's a scientific term. But yes, let's just sink into the floor and notice the difference in your legs, how your two legs align. Difference between the two legs. The difference between how the two heels are lying on the floor. The difference between how two of your knees are lying on the floor, and the height underneath the kneecaps. The difference between how your two hips are lying on the floor, pressure they make on the ground. The difference between how your two shoulders lie on the ground. The difference between how the two shoulder blades make contact with the ground. Is it uniform across, or is it different? And how long are your arms in your image? Is one longer than the other? Or what about your two legs? Is one of your legs longer blades. And the right shoulder, what's the distance between the right shoulder and your right ear? And is it, sorry, what's the length, sorry, the length between your right shoulder and your right ear in comparison with your left shoulder and your left ear? Which one is longer? Or is it the same? And if you like to lightly roll your head from the left to the right, and from the right to the left, just gently, and just noticing, is it the same on both sides in terms of rolling? And are you breathing? And then if you just like to rest in the middle, and if you'd like to bring your knees and your legs up to standing, soles of the feet, knees pointing to the ceiling, comfortable distance apart the feet. And if you like to just roll your hips from side to side, from left to right and from right to left, you may notice the knees might slightly move, but the movement actually is happening from within the pelvis. So it's actually your pelvis is moving from one side to the other, and then the knees will subsequently follow the movement. And just notice the difference on one side to the other. Is one easier? When you roll your hips from one side to the other, just going gently, going easy, and just pausing in the middle. Pausing in the middle, and then if you'd like to roll your pelvis to the left, so that means that there'll be more weight on your left buttock, and if you'd like to lift and lower your right hip from the ground, so just the hip, the feet stay on the ground, so the right, just slightly off, just be a paperweight off the ground, so the right hip slightly lift and lower it down onto the ground, just gently, so it's where the hip is, and just bring it back down again. And you'll notice that the right knee should lengthen towards the ceiling. Just going easy. Need to breathe. Not going to the end range, just lightly off, not too far off, just coming back down. And if you'd like to just pause there. And bring yourself back into the middle. Just pause for a moment. And then if you'd like to roll your pelvis to the right, so the weight will go onto your right buttock, and then lifting your left hip and then lowering it down to the ground, and just gently, easy, and you'll notice that the left knee should lengthen towards the ceiling. Remembering the learning strategies. Bringing it down, and when you bring it down, rest. Let the whole buttock, let the whole hip rest on the ground before you go again. And just seeing how easy, how different it is from one side to the other. Is one easier? From your memory of doing the other side, is this side easier or is it more difficult? And just like to pause in the middle there. So next time you come movement smaller and simpler, but just make it a little bit quicker, but you're hardly actually moving at all. So it's just like doop, 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 and you're just kind of going from side to side with the pelvis and just noticing if the movement travels up you further into your chest. So if you just go a little bit quicker but simpler and smaller, and can you notice the rib cage at all? Any of the ribs moving? Any of your breastbone, does that want to move at all? May not. And could you picture your chest would be like jelly? So as you initiate and roll your pelvis from side to side with your hips, you're going really slowly and quick, and you're breathing, you're not clenching your jaw. And does your chest then voluntarily just follow the movement and move a little bit? And you can just give that a rest, and you can bring the legs down now and rest on your back. And if you were to go back to the rolling of your head from side to side, is it a little bit easier than before? The same smoothness? The head bone, if you just give that a pause for a sec, middle, the head bone actually, the skull actually starts at the top where the top of your teeth are. I don't know if you're aware, but the bottom of your skull is where the top of your teeth are, and if you were to trace it all the way down along your cheek, it comes down to where your ear is and just where the earlobes are, and then it comes back around probably to where a point where the back of your head is touching the towel. There might be more pressure in the middle there, and that actually is your skull. So the bottom jaw part is not a part of your skull. So if you were to think of your head, this heavy bone, and it rolling like a big round rock, rolling by itself but not turning. If you went back to that idea of rolling your head with this in mind, would it change the way you rolled your head? So if you go back to, with this image in mind of your skull, of rolling your head with this heavy bone, does that change the quality of the head roll? Or do you tend to roll your head with your jaw? Because remember, that's not actually your head. It's just the bottom part of your jaw. So the head is a heavy bone. It rolls by itself, doesn't turn. So if you'd now like to roll onto your left side. You roll onto your left side, and your knees, so you just roll onto your left side and your knees are at right angle. Both hands are in front of your body. And your head's kind of in a comfortable height, so you're kind of creating a right angle with your left shoulder, and your head's kind of parallel in height to the ground. And it's comfortable. It's a comfortable distance off the ground. And now if you were to put your right hand over the top of your head to reach your left ear, so kind of on your left temple, but the head kind of, the hand just kind of comes around, and it's not at the back. Comes over around to the side, kind of near where the left ear is, and kind of like, in the middle, coming around to over the top of your head, and then your elbow will probably be facing the ceiling, your right elbow. as if you were kind of about to lift your head with your arm. So you kind of got a bit of, it's quite secure there. And if you'd like to then think about, and it's going to be moving side, we're going to be lifting your head in a moment, but you're going to be lifting it sideways. So you're not going to be lifting it forward, you're going to be lifting it sideways with the right hand, lifting and letting it down. Just slowly, gently, going easy with this, just a simple movement. Remembering to breathe, and what happens as you lift your head, what happens in the right side of your rib cage? Do the right ribs close as you lift the head? And what happens to the left side of the rib cage as you lift? Does the right ribs close and does the left ribs open? Can you get this sense and are you breathing? Is your breathing free? And don't do it fast, just a slow, simple movement. Remember to stay in comfort and rest the elbow and the arm down after each movement. So don't go too hard with this, because especially at the start, just go easy, have a bit of a rest. And just think about how could you make this a bit simpler. You go back to, could you think of before you lift, that actually it could be the right hip that could start this movement. Could the right hip initiate this movement, and the right hip goes towards your head as you lift your head? Does that make the movement a bit more clearer? And just going easy, maybe put your arm down. Were you lifting it sideways, or were you lifting it into the front? But maybe let's just go onto our back now. Just check in with how our legs are they long, length of the legs, 2 legs. And if you were to roll your head side to side, is one side easier than the other in terms of the quality of the movement? And if you just like to give that a rest, and then if you'd like to now roll onto your right side, and knees at right angle, hands, arms in front of your body, and now you're going to be using your left hand and bringing your left hand around onto the right temple near the right ear like you did before on the other side. So you're going to be using your left arm and sorry, not left arm, your left arm and reaching around to grab the right ear in the middle, the top of the head. And you're going to be, before you do it, you remember you're going to be lifting your head and lowering it. And when you lower it down, you're going to settle and let the elbow settle as well between the movements. So don't start yet. And remembering you're lifting your head sideways, not forward. So you're lifting your head sideways, and is it possible? And you can start the movement when you're ready, and just making sure your breathing's free. And could you initiate the movement with your left hip? So as it lifts, and doesn't have to lift too high off the ground, and just go easy and slowly. And does the left ribs close as you lift, and the right ribs open as you lift the head? And is your breathing free? And you might notice that one side is easier than the other, so the other side may have been harder or easier. This side might be easier or harder than the other side. And remembering when you're lifting sideways, think of the neck, the muscles on the right side lengthen as you lift, and the ones on the left side shorten. And it's also really good to think of the rib cage, but we won't. Do you want to just come onto your back now? And just do a brief scan of how your legs are lying. Which one's longer? If you were to roll your head with your arms comfortable. Is both sides, is one side easier? Is it different quality? Now, if you'd like to come onto your left side with the knees at right angle and hands in front of your body and the arms long. And the right hand's on top of the left hand. So if you'd now like to, with so the elbow will be straight, the arms are long. And does it matter which hand, if the left hand, the back of the left hand is on the floor? So the arm that's lying on the floor, is it better for the palm to be up? Yeah, if you now like to lengthen your right arm, so think about where the middle is, and forward and then back, and then stop at the middle, pause, settle, and the head lies on the floor and it rolls with the movement. And the most important thing is that the elbow remains straight. So the movement is from within the shoulder, not from within the elbow or the arm or the wrist. And just going slowly and easy and pausing between each movement. And are you stretching yourself wholly forward? Can you feel any movement in your ribs as you do this movement? Or in the back of you, or in the back of your ribs? And is it easier if your arms are a little bit higher, like if it changes where the position of your arms are? Are they in the right spot? Maybe they're a little bit further down, a little bit further up. You could just experiment where your arms are to make it a bit easier. If you bring them up to where your shoulder height, could that be a bit easier? And if you think of the movement in your shoulder and you're going forward and the ribs are moving and the right arm slides, the right hand slides over the left hand as the arm goes forward, and can you think of your whole self going forward, and your head rolls, and the hip stays quiet. And if you just like to pause on your side now, just take a rest. Remembering to stay in comfort, not going too hard on yourself. And if it gets a little bit confusing, what strategies do you use to do it? Do you just try and force it, or can you think of something differently? Can you think of another part of you or a different way of doing it that may open up? Just trying to be like a curious child and thinking, okay, if this doesn't work, then maybe something else could work. Exploring your options. So if you'd like to come back with the arms in that configuration, so the arms will be long back into that configuration you had it before. And if you'd like to going forward and back to the middle. So if your arms are back up into that position and your fingers aren't interlaced, they're just arms just there. Remembering that elbow stays straight, and you're actually, this one might be a little bit harder, so just go easy, make it simple, but you, instead of going forward with the shoulder, you're going back and then to the middle. So you don't have to go too far, but just going back and then backward and then to the middle with the shoulder, with the elbow not bent. And thinking of the ribs as well, is this easier or harder than going forward? And you don't move your knees or your feet or your ankles or your hips. So it's just a movement in the shoulder, and then you might notice in the ribs may come along. And if you could explore if backward doesn't work, or what if it doesn't have to be directly backward, it could be kind of slightly like an arc shape, so it could be almost back and around like in a diagonal way, or if it doesn't work directly back, you could experiment where your arms are. Does your head roll a little bit back? And just pausing in the middle there. Just like to give that a rest and just settle for a moment. Do you have enough head support? So if you want to bring your arms up again, and maybe, and if you now like to try and lengthen and shorten your right arm, your right shoulder blade, so you think you combine the two movements now. So the shoulder forward and back, and there's no bend in the elbow, and your breathing's free. Shoulder that you're lying on as well. So when you move forward, what happens to the shoulder that you're lying on? Does that move in consequence to the floor and rolls forward as your shoulder comes forward, as if you're going to touch someone in front of you. Remembering to let it settle in between each movement, noticing where the middle point is, and just going back to that middle point, not going too far back. And is there any difference on this side to the other side? And your elbow is not bending at all? Is this side easier than the other side? And can you notice that the right palm slides gently over the left palm, and feel some movement in the back, in the ribs or in the spine, down below, as you move yourself wholly forward. And just rest on the side. And then if you'd like to come back to the movement, and if you like to shorten the left arm, so that the left shoulder goes backwards, and then back to the middle, the elbow doesn't bend, and don't move your knees or your hips at all, or your ankles are free, your feet is free, but they're also quiet. There's not movements happening in the shoulder, into any of the ribs, or just do you stretch any of the ribs? Does movement come down to the hip at all? You feel the ribs part of the movement. Ribs on the left side, and the ribs probably on the ground as well on the right side. And if you'd like to rest on the side, now if you'd like to combine the two, so you're shortening and lengthening the left arm, the movement's only in the shoulder. There's no movement in the knees. I mean, the knees may move as a subsequent from the shoulder going forward, but the initiation is happening in the shoulder, in the left shoulder. And if you were to make the movement a little bit quicker and simpler, so you just go back and only do a small little part in the middle there, where the middle range, where it's really comfortable, and just sliding and going forward and back and going bloop, 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 where it's really easy, and just noticing how much of you kind of moves with the movement. And if you'd like to now give that a rest and come onto your back, check in with your breathing. And if you'd like to roll your head on either side, and just checking how it is to roll your head on both sides. Has the quality changed at all between the two? Come back onto your right side. Your knees at right angle, your hands in front of your body. So your hands are just comfortably in front of your body. They can be anywhere that's comfortable for you, because we're going to be doing the movement now in the knee, not in the arms. So if you like to lengthen the left knee forward and backward, so it's just a movement of the left hip, left pelvis, so the pelvis goes forward, and subsequently the left knee will then go forward. It's not a straightening or bending in the knee. The foot is not involved, the lower part of the leg's not involved. It's just kind of a left sit bone on the left buttock comes back, and then it comes forward, and then it rests in the middle there before you start to do it again. And remember the feet are at right angle, so it's as if you're sitting down, and you're on a chair in front of your desk, and then the feet are as if you're sitting down in an office. And you just like to give that a pause on the side. Is it easier on this? Just like to pause and rest. Is it easier on this side or harder on the other side? So if you were to combine the two movements now, going left knee going forward and back to the left hip, the initiation of the what's happening in the hip, and if you went forward and backward, you notice that the ribs are also part of the movement. So the difference of the movement of the rib cage, and as you're breathing free. Just going where it's easy and comfortable, remembering the learning strategies, knowing when to stop, knowing when it's better to go, staying in comfort, going smaller, holding the goals loosely. And if you were to come back to the movement and just try to do it a little bit simpler, so smaller but quicker. So it's as if you're almost not doing the movement, you just found this little middle point, and it's forward and backwards is equal amount. And it's just going forward, back, dum, 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 dum. How much of you is moving when you do that? You feel it rippling up you onto the back, onto the pelvis, to your spine. Does your spine feel free? Remembering, if it's too hard to do the movement, you can also imagine. It's the power of imagination. It's as if your neural network, as if the muscles still think you're doing the movement, but you're only doing it in your cortex. And what if your spine, you're still doing it, you just picture your spine like a chain or like a train. So each vertebra, so as the knee comes forward and back, and the pelvis goes forward and back, what happens to the spine? Does it also move? Does each vertebra move like a train? And if you'd like to come back onto your back, and checking in to your stamp and rolling your head from one side to the other, just checking the quality. Is one side easier than the other, or is it a bit more even? And if you would like to bring your knees and legs up to standing, your feet a comfortable distance apart. And if you came back to that original very first movement of rolling your hips from side to side, and the movement's not in the knees, it's happening in the hips, in the pelvis. So you notice the weight shifting over the buttock, but so the initiation occurs from within your pelvis, in your hips. Hips is making the movement. And could you make the chest or in your back. So if you'd like to roll onto your left side now. And if you'd like to reach over the top of your head with your right arm, grabbing the left, near the left ear, so the left temple, like so at the top, and the elbow should be facing the ceiling or thereabouts, and if you were to lift your head sideways, not forward, but just sideways, comfortably breathing. Is the movement, is it a bit free now, easier to do? Does the movement, can you initiate the movement from the hip? From the right hip, could that initiate the lifting of the head? So you still lift it with your arm, but the hip moves first forward, the hip comes towards your head as you lift it, and the ribs on the right side close as you lift your head, and the ribs on the bottom open. And do the right ribs kind of press down onto the left ribs as the left ribs touch onto the ground as you lift your head? And remembering to rest when you're comfortable, when you can, letting the elbow go down, rest. And what if you were to now lift your right foot, so if your arms just lie in front of your body, and if you just lifted your right foot and your knees stay on top of each other, so the knees stay together, but you're just lifting your lower leg, so the right foot just off the ground ever so slightly and coming back down. And so do you notice at all any change in the ribs? If you really pay attention, so if you really slow it down, listen to your breathing, thinking about the lower ribs, does anything change in your ribs? A little twist or anything as you lift your foot and lower it? And just a rhetorical question, I'd just like to leave the foot down now. Now, if you went to lift your head, but you lifted your head without the help of your arm, so if you lift, could you lift your head without the help of your arm off the ground sidewards? Is that possible at all? If it's not, don't worry, just imagine that. Could you lift the foot at the same time? And is it easier, does it make it easier to lift your head when the foot is up? If it's not, that's fine. Do the ribs on the side close and the open on the ground? And if you just like to give that a rest. And if you'd like to now roll onto your back, just have a nice rest. And if you now like to come onto the other side, and your left arm over the top of your head, grabbing to the right ear near the right temple, the right elbow is probably to the ceiling, so you've securely got your head in a secure way. And if you then go to lift your head and lower it just where it's comfortable, just where it's easy, and you notice that the left ribs close as you lift your head, and the ribs on the bottom on the right open as you lift your head. change in your ribs as you lift your foot off? Is there some sort of something happening in the lower ribs, either on the side, possibly on the side that's up, or on the side that's on the ground, on the right side or the left side? Lower foot. And is it possible to lift the head on this side without the help of your arm? And lift it sidewards so that the right side lengthens and the left side shortens muscle. And if you are able to lift your head, or you can do it in your imagination if it's too difficult, if you were to hold it up there just for a second, and then turn your head to look to the ceiling and then to look to the floor, or with your eyes, look to the ceiling and then to look to the floor. Just only a couple of times, then 2 times is enough, and then put your head down. When you did that, could you feel any twisting in the spine? And if you'd like to come onto your back now. And you'd like to just come onto your left side. Remembering the arms, lengthening the arms. So if you just like to try to lengthen the arms forward, and as you lengthen the arms forward, and your knees are at right angles, as if you're sitting on a seat. And could you possibly lengthen the arms and lengthen the knee at the same, so the legs stay in right angle, and so the right knee would come forward and the right hip will come forward with the right shoulder will go forward at the same time. Simultaneously, both goes forward and both then comes back. Is that easy? Easy to do that movement? So everything rolls, the head rolls, the ribs roll, the hip rolls over the side it's lying on. Back to the middle, and then are you doing it? Could you make it so that the movement of the hip and the movement of the shoulder is the same amount of movement for both? So you're doing an equal amount of movement. And you're breathing free, and you just like to give that a rest. Like to roll onto your back. Take a full rest. Checking in how long your legs are. How long your arms are. Roll your head from side to side. What's the quality like now? Is it smooth as sailing on one side than the other? Can you feel much of the movement travelling down you? Is it only a movement in the neck, or is there more of a movement than just the neck? The neck vertebra. Is there more vertebra in your spine moving, or in your ribs? And if you'd just like to roll onto your right side, and your knees are at right angles if you're sitting down at the desk. And if you now like you do the other side, just roll, lengthen your shoulder, your left shoulder forward, your left arm goes forward, and your left hip and left could you make the two movements the same? So the movement in the hip and the knee coming forward and back, the buttock as well. Could that movement be the same degree of range as the shoulder and the foot? Could you make them the same and make it the most smoothest and easiest as you can with breathing free? And if you like to give that a rest now, come onto your back. And check in with the length of your legs, how long that's both legs. How long your arms. Is there a difference between your two heels, how they lie on the ground? Two knees, how they lie? Two hips, how they lie? Two shoulders. Is there a difference between your two shoulder blades? Contact with the ground. And if you were to roll your head now from side to side, is it a bit more freer? What about the length between, if you were to pause in the middle, the length between your left shoulder and the left ear, and the right shoulder and the right ear? Is that different from the start? Now if you were to bend your knees, roll your pelvis from side to side, is it a bit more freer? Smoother? Is your chest like jelly? If you made it a little bit simpler and a little bit quicker, so smaller, but you just made it really tiny, so the movement of the pelvis just sitting in the middle and just making it really tiny. And is your chest just all soft, like jelly, the rib cage soft, the breastbone soft? And if you'd like to give that all a rest, bring your legs down. And in your own time, if you like to roll to the side, staying within yourself, staying within your experience, and coming up to sitting in your own time. And then coming up to standing. Noticing contact with the ground over the 2 feet. The arms are just long by your side, and does the surface area on your 2 feet change? Is more of your feet on the ground? And if you went to lift an arm now, which arm would you lift? And how heavy or soft or light or easy is it? And if you do a comparison between the two, and remembering the difference that when we came up in the middle there. And what about turning? Remember the point on the wall when you were turning, and can you feel, is it just your neck muscles that's moving, or is there a bit more of you? Is there some part of in the back of you, or something else that's part of this movement, turning? And if you'd like to go for a walk, yourself do you have while walking? Can you notice your ribs? Parts of your chest that you couldn't notice before? And just go walking at a normal pace now. And just staying within your experience and moving into the world.
It's good.
Yeah?
Only thing I noticed is there was a bit too much turning from side to side.
Oh, okay.
Possibly you might want to get mats or something to make it a bit easier. You just
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's a bit too much turning.
there's
Yeah.
too much turning. Do you sort of find that too?
Only sort of
Right,
wish
from
that
side to
the
side.
pillow was like longer.
Yeah.
So when you sort of, when you roll, sort of
Yeah.
have to do like a lift and a roll.
Yeah.
But that wasn't a huge issue
So
for me.
you put a mat. If you had mats, it might make it a
What
bit
is that
easier.
because the floor was too hard?
Too hard, yeah. Yeah, the floor's a bit too hard.
Wasn't so bad, I don't think, for me.
Mm.
There's a bit strenuous to keep turning.
Yeah,
as well.
it seemed like you were a little bit
Did you find it strenuous turning all the time? Or?
So
Yeah. It was good.
it is interesting though, because like you sort of create a knowledge of these muscles there.
Yeah,
yeah.
And afterwards there's such a, I don't know, surety in when you move.
Surety.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the word, but like you're more sure in it. And it's sort of, it's not necessarily strength, it's just sort of,
Yeah.
it's less nervous and like, you know, because before the thing, it's like you don't have the knowledge of these muscles, so you're sort of using them, but it's almost like you don't know how to, and then
Yeah.
afterwards you're
Yeah.
really developing them. It's good.
Yeah,
It's good.
that's what I noticed too.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
I
Yeah,
like
was
the,
it quite probably different to?
I like the bit where you lift the head up the
Yeah, I didn't know whether you were doing that too much or
I
whether
was,
you did you find
I
it
found
hard?
it easy.
Oh, you found it easy?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Actually,
You weren't doing it, you weren't lifting that much more compared to Andrew, but
I was trying to do it slowly so I could
Yeah,
feel
yeah,
that.
that's good, that's good.
I was trying to feel how the movement was.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Yeah. Actually, I don't think I did the looking on one side, you know, where I told you to look on the ceiling and look on the floor.
Yeah.
I think we didn't do that on one side, that's all right. Yeah, this was a good, this was one of the lessons that one of the first 13 that Feldenkrais taught in Israel. He taught them like every day for 2 years straight, and they were like the 13
Yeah, cool lessons of it.
like yeah, and they that was one of them that did this lesson. Yeah, interesting. It really kind of wakes up the ribs.
Yeah.
I don't know, for
Yeah,
me.
that's all I can just say it.
Yeah. If you notice the ribs.
Yeah, yeah. Like it wasn't that strenuous moving between, but I just thought you'd probably notice, you'd probably find that some people would say it is strenuous as in moving. It was like when I had to roll over again every time, so oh no, I've got to roll over this.
Yeah, like
hard
at
floor.
the end, maybe in the middle, I wasn't doing as much rolling because you were just doing it on the one side, but then at the end it was kind of.
Yeah.
I think that's where also I was a bit unsure of because some of the lessons I kind of got a little bit confused a little bit.
Because you get comfortable on one side, and then all of a sudden you go and roll over.
Switch to the other.
Yeah.
It was,
Yeah.
you know when you went to the right side, and
Yeah.
you sort of made the mistake if you said, oh, back to the left.
Yeah.
I actually felt that was a really good time to go to the right side.
Oh.
Yeah, me
Yeah,
too.
like
That's,
that. I felt like you'd
what I
sort
thought.
of done the left side or whatever
Yeah,
you
yeah.
needed to do, and then I'm like, okay, up to the right.
That's what I thought
So
too.
it didn't feel out of place at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
That's,
actually, when I was first doing this lesson, I actually found that it was hard just doing it the whole thing on one side. So I actually felt like rolling onto the other side, just have a rest on the other side was good enough.
I also feel, I think one of the earlier lessons that we did, I think it was the one where you sort of like you're on your side, you got to stretch and do that whole reaching thing. It's like we focused like 65-70% on one side and sort of didn't do the other.
Yeah.
And it's almost like, I don't know if, is it a thing where like if you say, okay, don't think about which arm you're going to move, but move it, and that's the one that you're more confident in, therefore you're stronger in it, do you then use that as a focus on the opposite side to sort of balance it out? Because you know how like you use your right, if you're right-handed, you use your right side more. Do these sort of stretches or stretches balance it out if you focus more on the left, or do you do both?
Well, it's more about I guess or it's about balance, but we don't. But also about knowing that we're not symmetrical. So because we use one side more, we'll always have one side will be more active than the other. And bringing awareness to both sides, knowing that both sides can move equally, but also knowing that you're always going to be asymmetrical, and it's fine to be asymmetrical. It's fine. Like we're not supposed to be symmetrical.
was that? Do you reckon I was pushing it a bit too hard with some of the movements? If I found it strenuous?
No.
I thought strenuous, but now it feels like it feels good.
Well, the thing is, I'm still that's the really hard part for me as a practitioner is the observation part, which I'm very weak on, in knowing. Because when you get good at it, you can actually tell even by looking at someone, oh, that person is doing too much, or that person. While at the moment, I'm still kind of like unsure. So that'll just take practice.
Do you know if I was doing too much at some stages, or?
No, well, you know way better than me.
Yeah.
So you're your own. That's the whole self-regulating thing.
In fact,
you know more about yourself than any doctor or any other person. The only one that knows more about you is you.
And at one stage, I actually felt like I could do the move. I wanted to do the movement longer than what you said to do, but you said to have a rest. I wanted to actually do it.
And feel free. Like I'm only doing it because I'm just guessing. I'm just taking a guess that maybe you guys are ready for a rest. But feel free to be curious and play. And if you want to keep on doing it, keep on doing it. If you want to stop halfway through, stop and just imagine it.
Some of those last moves, like the last movement where